Hi everyone and welcome to this applied psychology video. Based in today's webinar that I'm screencasting to you now, it's going to be on anxiety reduction. So this video has been designed for your assessment, and in your assessment brief it states that one of your videos should be based upon relaxation techniques. And as you can see, two that I've put underneath is progressive muscular relaxation and controlled regulated breathing. We will also look at other kind of interventions, and I'll signpost you to maybe some others that you might want to do some additional reading around, but the main focus will be on PMR and also controlled regulated breathing. So the main game plan for today is that we'll identify what we mean by anxiety reduction and also relaxation. So you'll kind of come up with your own meaning and also what it might mean for your clients, your case study. In addition to that, hopefully you'll discuss amongst yourselves when you get together regarding the different techniques to help relax and reduce anxiety, and also you'll be able to analyze which techniques are most suitable for certain situations and clients. So by all means, these interventions and techniques that we'll discuss today are not perfect, and they'll work in some situations, probably not in others, and it's for you to have that bit of a critical thought, show some criticality of thinking, right, would this actually work in this situation? Would this work for my client that I'll be using it with? And if you can demonstrate that understanding, then it shows some kind of lateral thinking. So without further ado, what we shall move on to is what is relaxation? And what I mean by that is I want you to think about what it means to you in everyday life. So how would you define relaxation? What does relaxation mean to you? That's what I'd like you to do first. And then secondly, following that, I'd like you to think about your clients, the case study that you'll be working with. What do you think it would mean to your client to be relaxed? So if they're a athlete, if they're an exerciser, to them, what would relaxation be? Would it be reduced muscle tension? Would it be stopping anxiety thoughts, anxious thoughts, stuff like that? So I want you to think about what it means to you, so relaxation to you, and also what you think it might mean for your client, whether they be an athlete or an exerciser or anybody else. So that's what I'd like to do first. So if you pause this video, I'd like to just do a bit of a brainstorm for us, and what we'll do is we'll move on. So hopefully you've paused the video and had a bit of a brainstorm in regards to what relaxation means to you in everyday life, but also what it means to your client. So for example, if you are thinking about an elite athlete or an amateur athlete, it might be that they want that reduced muscle tension. They don't want to be jittery when it comes to their sporting event. It could be a case that they need to stop those anxious thoughts that come through, those self-doubt moments. So that's the kind of thing I want you to think about, and I want you to apply it and make it realistic to your case studies. So hopefully you've done that. So also now what I like you to do as well is consider the reasons to relax. Sorry. So can you think of any examples? So two of the main reasons why we try to relax is to think about the physiological state of us, but also the psychological state. So could you give me any examples for physiological and psychological? So any of the reasons why we want to relax. Think about physiological components, think about psychological components. If you pause the video, have a quick brainstorm again, and we'll move on. So when it comes to relaxing, as addressed before, one of the main aims that any individual will want to relax is most likely because of body, to calm the body physiologically. That might mean, like I've said, about tense muscles. It could be the case of shaking, being a bit jittery. It could even be the kind of physiological symptoms of an upset stomach, and how that kind of relates into the psychological component of anxiety. And also some other physiological components could be heart rate and breathing rate. So think about those kind of situations where an individual will want to feel relaxed. They don't want a high heartbeat. They don't want their breathing rate to be excessive. They want to be nice and calmed and relaxed. So there's some of the physiological components as to why, as athletes, as exercisers, or as just generic individuals, we try to relax. We want to keep that homeostatic balance, and we want to be nice and calm physiologically. Now, we all know that physiological symptoms and psychological symptoms go hand in hand. So if we have one, we've most likely got the other. So if we are suffering from a high heart rate or a fast heart rate and also a breathing rate, then that might be due to us being stressed, could be due to us being anxious. There's many other situations, psychological situations that can induce these symptoms. So one of the reasons why we try to relax and we have some interventions in place is because we try to shift from those anxiety provoking thoughts or those stress provoking thoughts to a more focused mindset. So all in all, to improve attentional control and attentional focus, concentration, and as you'll realize with your assessment, two of the criteria, I think it's 4.1 and 4.2, talk about attentional control and also concentration. Now, those criteria could be hit in imagery, could be hit in self-talk, because if you look at the research around it and search further afield, you'll find that there's a lot of evidence to suggest that they work. And it's the same when it comes to relaxation. Certain techniques that we'll discuss today can help improve your attentional focus and also concentration levels. So there's some of the main reasons why we try to relax. Now, what I'd like you to do before I show you we've mentioned it already, but I want you to have a quick search or a quick brainstorm again regarding what techniques are you already aware of to help you relax. And it could be as simple as running a bath, if that's what you want to do, kind of relax. Could be a case of listening to your favourite music. But do you know any more kind of psychological or scientific interventions that might be in place? So please pause the video and have a go at doing that for us. So hopefully you've had a bit of a brainstorm, maybe even a bit of a quick research, and more often than not when you research interventions and techniques to help us relax, you might come across these. This isn't an extensive list, this is a limited list to say the least, but what I've put in blue is what we'll address and focus on today. The ones in black are other common methods to help us relax, certain training programs or interventions as such. But for example, they're the ones that if you want to stretch and challenge yourself and go and have a read about it, you can do. But I don't want to bog you down with too much theory and context, so I'm going to focus it in on these three. But just to give you a quick overview, stress inoculation theory, that's when you expose your individual, your client, to stressful situations. So you're trying to induce stressful situations more often than not, and the more they're exposed to it, the more they build up a bit of a resistance, a bit of a desensitization. So that's what stress inoculation training aims to do. And biofeedback, you can kind of see in the way it's worded, bio for biological and feedback for the response. So it's a intervention to look at biological responses. So it might be a case that you get your client hooked up to a heart monitor and see when you implement different interventions if it can regulate a heart rate and things like that. But for the purpose of this video, we will focus on the first three, and I'll get into that now for you. So we talked about PMR, progressive muscular relaxation. Now, a bit of background theory, so this is how it started off. It started off as progressive relaxation. It was developed by a guy called Jacobson in 1938, so very contemporary, as we all know. But it proposed that as individuals, what we can do is we can tense and relax different subgroups of muscles. For example, voluntary muscles. So the kind of muscles that we can physically and actively tense and relax. And hopefully in combination with doing this, it also helps some involuntary muscles to tense and relax. So it kind of goes hand in hand. Now, progressive relaxation, it's been developed since 1938, believe it or not, and it's got now a modern kind of take on it, a modern spin, which is progressive muscular relaxation. And what we'll do is we'll address the kind of assumptions of that next, and then also maybe how it can benefit an individual and how it can be structured. So some of the main assumptions is that it's possible to learn the difference between tension and relaxation. So this method aims to allow us to be self-aware of when we're tense. So if you actively tense something and then relax, you can feel that sensation, and by continuously in practicing this technique, you become aware of when you're tensed in any situation. It also assumes that tension and relaxation are mutually exclusive, so you cannot be relaxed and tense at the same time. So that's one of the assumptions of progressive muscular relaxation. It's on two different ends of a spectrum. You cannot physically be relaxed and tense at the same time. And then one of the final assumptions is that relaxation of the body through decreased muscle tension should in turn reduce or decrease mental tension. So, like I've mentioned about the psychological and physiological state always being linked together, uh, a lot of research suggests that if your muscles are relaxed, if you don't feel tensed, if you're not really jittery or shaky, you do kind of have that reduced mental or psychological state of anxiety. So that's the assumptions of PMR. Now, the modern version of it, like we've mentioned, is that there's kind of four subgroups of four sections. So you've got your upper body, so like the face, neck, shoulders, and upper back. And what you do is you tense those kind of areas and relax. You've then got the upper body extremities, so for example the arms. It then will progress down into the stomach, abdomen, lower back areas, and then finally finish off around your hips, your legs, and your feet. And they're the kind of main subgroups that you can tense and relax. And the term progressive is in there because you will start from the top down, or you might start from the bottom and work your way up. So it's progressive throughout those different sections. So a bit more in regards to the kind of way it's structured and works is that participants are taught to tense each of those muscle groups before relaxing it. So what they'll do is, let's say for example, you want to, with your face, your forehead, you might want to frown and hold it for 5 seconds, and then once that's done is relax. And then again move on to another component, hold it for 5 to 7 seconds and then relax. And that allows you to appreciate the difference between that tensed feeling and then the sensation of being relaxed, and you get used to that kind of feeling. Now, PMR training, it's suggested that it can last up to 30 minutes, so could be suggested quite a lengthy training method to implement. However, once individuals have practiced and mastered PMR, they can induce relaxation much more quickly. So like with anything, especially when it comes to psychological skills training, the more you practice it, the quicker and easier it becomes to administer and do. So in addition to that, Nidifer went on to say that acquisition of this skill, it may be slow at first, but again, after a few months, athletes or individuals, they learn to evoke a relaxation response in a few seconds. So it could be by the click of the fingers that they become relaxed if they can monitor their tension levels a lot easier the more they practice. And as seen by research from Ost in 1988, they developed an actual applied variant to teach individuals to relax within 20 to 30 seconds. So you can see it's gone from one extreme of 30 minutes that's not really practical to then a situation where it could be done in 20 to 30 seconds. But again, depending on how critical you want to be, when it comes to sport or exercise, how often do you tend to get that much time to implement 20 to 30 seconds if it's in an intense situation? So, what I want you to do, pause the video and have a go at answering these, or these prompts will help you suggest the kind of strengths and limitations to PMR. So I want you to put your critical hat on, and I want you to think, right, time consumption, is it time consuming or not? Think about for someone who's first coming into PMR. Think about the practicality for athletes and exercisers. Is it practical? When should it be used, or when should it be avoided? So think about the ideal situation when to use it. Think about the situations where it might not be relevant to use, and also just anything else that you want to add into it. So again, have a go at brainstorming, put some bullet points down in your notebook, because it will be something that we'll discuss when we come back after the half-term period. Or when I next see you. So make sure you get some notes down because we will discuss it. So have a go at pausing it and have a go at trying to think about these prompts. So hopefully you did that, and what I'm going to direct you to now is on Moodle in the folder for relaxation or anxiety reduction. I will upload a script, an example script of PMR. So this gives you an overview of how it can be structured and how you might incorporate it within your actual session. So let's say you're sat down with your client in the video, you might talk a bit around PMR, and it might be a case of, right, we'll have a go at implementing a basic tutorial of it. So you might demonstrate it on some of the extremities of the body or the lower part or the upper part, and you could formulate a basic script. When it comes to your mock-up underneath, try and complete a full script. It doesn't really have to be too detailed, but it would be great to see you know, engaging with a script and basing it probably off of research that's out there. And also for further details on PMR and other kind of anxiety reduction techniques, there is a chapter that I'll be uploading by Galucci on Moodle. And again, refer to it, have a skim through, and again it'll explain to you what to do for PMR and the kind of rules behind it. So that's a bit of an overview of PMR. What I'd also suggest would be beneficial as well is go on YouTube. There's many videos out there, so you can watch what other people do and try and incorporate it into yours. So the next thing that we're going to go on to is breathing control. Now, there's not a mass amount of sport and exercise specific research literature out there. There is some, and if you want to have a glance through and have a bit of a detailed read, by all means do so. But one of the kind of general techniques, and it's just kind of common practice, is you want that deep, regulated, controlled breathing. So one of the things that you'll see and you'll come across is this 4-7-8 rule. So that would be that you take a deep breath in for 4 seconds, and then you'd hold it for 7, and then you'd take a slow breath out for 8 seconds, emptying the lungs, and you'd repeat this process. So it's a way for you to, again, control your breathing, taking deep breaths and make it regulated. So if you think about in an anxious situation or when it's really stressful, as breathing rate increases, what you want to do in certain situations is try and regulate that, try and compose yourself. And in regards to that, the knock-on effects could be, you know, heightened concentration. You've you've got a higher attentional focus because you're not kind of worrying about these physiological symptoms anymore. So when it comes to breathing control, the 4-7-8 rule is a good one to refer to and mention. Now, again, there'll be an article on Moodle for you to look at. This is Giraffe and his colleagues, and this article is very it's got a lot of the biological symptoms, signs and symptoms, and the effects of doing controlled breathing in association or in combination with such things like meditation and other aspects. Now, it can be a bit of a heavy read, but if you have a glance and skim through, you'll be able to pick out that deep regulated breathing, it's been showed to reduce physiological stress and tension, as well as reduce high cortisol levels. So, for example, like stress levels, stress-inducing symptoms, and also PTSD, so post-traumatic stress disorder like symptoms. So this article, you know, it offers that evidence that deep, regulated, and controlled breathing can improve physiological state, which in turn influence your psychological state. And also, this article talks about it being combined with techniques such as meditation. So it's not something that can be used in isolation. You could do breathing techniques with imagery, could be done with a bit of self-talk, it could also be done with music. So it's one of those that you can use in combination. So remember, it's just one tool in your toolbox. Make sure you use a variety to get the best build as possible. So in regards to that then, very similar to what we did with the PMR technique, is I want you to think about the strengths and limitations. Is it practical for an athlete to do these breathing techniques or an exerciser? Will it always work? Do you think it works for everybody? So just think about the kind of practicality, time consumption, and some of the things we've just mentioned, and try and pinpoint the strengths and limitations. How well would it work for your client? How may it not work for your client? Those kind of aspects. So have a bit of a brainstorm, and we'll move on to the next component. So hopefully you've done that, and what I'm going to kind of consolidate on and finish on is cognitive affective stress management training. Now, this isn't an isolated intervention, it's more of a training program as given away by the stress management training. Now, this cognitive affective SMT model, what it does is it can teach a person specific integrated coping responses. So if you've ever looked at coping research, there's a lot out there that's just about different interventions to do in combination or in isolation on how to reduce stress and anxiety. Now, the cognitive affective SMT model focuses on relaxation techniques and also cognitive components such as cognitive restructuring. Now, in simple terms, that could be using progressive muscular relaxation, in combination with something like self-talk, trying to refrain from negative kind of thoughts and processes and statements, and restructuring that into positive that ultimately improves our emotional or affective state of mind. Um, so this is the model, and I've added on my two black arrows pointing towards what this basically means. So as you can see, we've got the situation on the left. Now that's all about how we can appraise a situation and our coping ability. So a situation, we might have a mental appraisal of it where we think, right, I can do this, the situation, it's something I've been in before, that's fine, and therefore you might appraise the situation to be, I can cope with this. Done it many times, that's fine. However, there could be a situation which you've never been in before, you're really nervous and anxious, therefore your appraisal and your coping ability might be, actually I'm not going to be able to cope with this. So cognitive effective stress management training, it tries to get you to reframe, to relax, and restructure how you might appraise it. And as you can see, that there's two arrows in the middle where that links into the physiological response, the actual behaviour. So if you're feeling, comfortable in that situation, you feel that you can cope, then you're less likely to show physiological stress, symptoms such as tense muscles, shaking, sweat, and also the psychological of stress and anxiety. Now your behaviour then will be a lot more calm and a lot more subdued. Whereas if you appraise this situation to be highly stressful, something you've never been in before, you might appraise that as, I'm not going to be able to cope. I can't cope with that. Therefore, your physiological response could be that you're shaking, you're nervous, you've got an upset stomach, and all the rest of it that comes along with stress and anxiety. So as you can see, they interlink with one another. Now, what it's saying is that to help work with the mental appraisal, so how you judge situations, how you think about things, you can go through cognitive restructuring training, which is self-instructional training in combination. That could be as simple as self-talk. So changing from I can't do this to I can do this. Let's say, for example, it's a marathon runner. They have the thought process of I can't finish this race. It's too hard. Restructure that to thinking about I've trained at this distance many times before. I'm able to do it. I've practiced for so many years. I'm more than able to complete this. So it's about how to appraise situations to get rid of those faulty thinking processes. Now on the right hand side, we can see in regards to your physiological response to your behaviour, you want to implement relaxation techniques, certain interventions like progressive muscular relaxation. It could be the controlled regulated breathing. And what it says in combination with the self-talk to help restructure your thoughts, with the PMR and other relaxation techniques to help control behaviour, combine that together and that is your integrated coping response. So it could be a case of that you might suggest with your athlete that you're not going to do just isolation of one, you might incorporate two, and you want them to start practicing it, and then when it comes to the actual competition or the actual environment that they're going to use it in, they can implement it successfully. So cognitive effective stress management training, it's a multi-component approach, taking on board that self-talk and progressive muscular relaxation and combining it to help improve how you mentally appraise situations and your coping ability, and also to help improve your physiological responses, the actual behaviour that you exude. Bit of a whirlwind, I get that. Feel free to rewind the video or send me an email or talk to me whenever I've got a one-to-one, and I'll be more than happy to go through it with you in a one-to-one kind of basis. So the 5 phases then, just to break it down and reiterate, is that with the CA-SMT model, these 5 phases consist of pre-treatment, so pre-treatment assessment, so you assess skills or potential deficits of your client and what to work on. You talk about the treatment rationale, so the reason behind doing it, what's the purpose, what's the point, what's the end goal. You'll then move on to phase 3, which is skill-ac, so that's about training in PMR. It's about practicing self-talk, those self-instruction statements. So it's about practicing it, constantly practice it, revise it over till you become like you've an expert or you've mastered it. Then when it goes into phase 4, it's about actually implementing it. Could be implemented in practice, in training, then actually implementing it in the actual scenario that you've designed this for. And then phase 5, it's that bit of reflection, it's that post-training evaluation. How well did it work? How effective was it? Could there be anything that you could improve? So they're the 5 key phases of cognitive effective stress management training. Similar to the breathing one, what I'd love for you to do is pause the video and just assess the strengths and limitations to this model. By no means is it perfect, but I want to see your criticality. So that is pretty much this webinar in a nutshell. Finished, done. The next little slide is this criteria which we've covered and still to address and so on. So what I want to do is just quickly talk you through it. As you can see, we've got the criteria from 1.1 to 4.2. Now, a lot of these, so for example 1.1 and 1.2, you're probably going to incorporate in your first video, the intake one. The goal setting one for 2.1 is probably going to go in your second video, all around goal setting. The 2.2, analyze methods of influencing motivation. This one could be incorporated into goal setting, could be incorporated into self-talk, imagery. Please conduct the research, please read around, because research does suggest that goal setting, self-talk, imagery, they all can be ways to improve motivation. If you remember back to when we covered goal setting, we spoke about Lock and Latham and what it can do. If you've set clear, achievable targets that you know are manageable, you've adopted like a SMARTS principle, they can openly influence motivation, they can help increase it. So you might want to incorporate 2.2 in with your goal setting video, but it could be done in others. Please make sure you signpost it in your e-portfolios. The self-taught one, that's straightforward, that'll go in your self-taught video. The relaxation one, again, demonstrate relaxation techniques, there's a relaxation video. Imagery, that goes into the mental rehearsal video, so again that's a tick box in itself. 3.3, now this one is perform selected psyching up techniques. There is a video on your brief which discusses or talks around arousal control. Now, one of the criteria like we've just seen here is perform selected psyching up techniques. So arousal control, trying to highly arouse someone, trying to psych them up. So in that video what you could do is incorporate music, could be pre-performance routines, but also it could interlink with these here. So you might want to do a combination of a selection of them for that video. Then 4.1 and 4.2, I've already suggested that such things like self-talk, such things as relaxation, imagery, all have research suggesting that it can improve attentional focus and that it can help improve concentration levels. So again, these could interlink with any of these just here. So bit of a whirlwind, I know. Again, pause video, go back through it, or come and see me in contact and we can have a bit of a one-to-one. But that is everything that I wanted to go across. Address relaxation, anxiety reduction techniques, and just assess this, cover this criteria. We've only really got one of the main session that will help you for your videos, which is going to be the session on music, which I aim to do for the next session. Pretty much the final video slot, which is around 3.3, which we've just discussed about perform selected psyching up techniques. So the session is going to focus on the use of music, how it can be implemented in different scenarios and in different ways to allow for us to be able to psych up, and also how music can be used in combination with other interventions and techniques. So how music could be maybe involved with self-talk, how it could also be used with imagery, and how that can psych an individual up. So that's everything from me. Thanks for listening, and I will speak to you in the next Applied Psychology webinar. Thanks for listening, guys, and see you later.